Welcome everybody. It's a beautiful morning this morning, seeing the nice cloudy skies. I'm seeing the ground is wet and everything. What a beautiful morning. As I'm looking outside my window right now, the air is crisp and cool. It's going to rain probably this afternoon. It rained earlier today. Perfect time to be inside talking to you about my favorite topic, which is astrology. Today, I'm going to be chatting with you about Mars Retrograde in Cancer and Leo. And I'm going to be going through all 12 zodiac signs, saying what you need to know based on your sun, moon, and rising. So if you don't know your chart, you can go to astro.com and find out that information to be able to get it. Get the information. Know the information. Have the information. And you really use it to your advantage. It's really what you can do with this energy, is knowing how to work with it. I'm going to kind of give you some ways of working with it. Oh wait, this happened in the past. I gave you the dates on the last video. Well, think of this as general advice for any time. I would have done this video in December of 2024, but at the time I wasn't doing podcasts like this. It wasn't until 2026 that I started, so kind of going back in time, giving you your astrology forecast at the time, but not now. That's the thing. Not now. So, let us start out with understanding that there are timestamps in the video. You can go forward, you can go backward to whatever signs you possess in your natal birth chart. So, Mars retrograde in Cancer, in short, it's a time of creating greater emotional foundations, focusing on our emotional current and how we are becoming more compassionate and nurturing toward ourselves and others. Focusing on where we're overly moody, we're overly dependent upon our emotions to get the better of us. And in Leo, deals a lot with confidence, deals a lot with pride, deals a lot with all those kind of things like that. It deals a lot with being overly egoic and allowing our ego to get the better of us. Allowing our egos to take control of not being allowed to just be heart-centered and be authentic and be vulnerable. And really give from our hearts. Our place of heart, our place of being, really. That's what we're sort of steering ourselves towards in a way. So I'm going into the signs now, beginning with Aries. So for Aries, have you ever walked into a candy store, been like, I want that so bad, I want that so bad, I want that so bad, and you've been impulsive about it when it comes to having the emotional impulse to eat the candy? Mars retrograde is going to help you look at your impulses. Where you've been overly impulsive. we've been overly aggressive. We need to dial it back and really think about what you do before you do it. Not just getting the candy out of impulse. Not just eating it out of impulse because it's there. It's inviting. It's free. Not doing that. Instead, you're choosing to say, I'm having self-control on this. And I'm dialing back my own impulses. So that whatever I do is thoughtful, well thought out, and it's concretized, down to earth. It's practical, it's pragmatic. It's not overly emotional. Now, in this regard, any risk that is reckless or careless or not mindful, it's not a good time to take risks. Instead, it's a time to focus on what feels safe to you. I want to ask you, Aries, what feels safe? What do you feel in your body is safe? What decisions do you want to make? And how do they feel in your body? How do they feel inside your body? Inside your soul? Do they feel safe? Does it feel safe? Talking deep down in your intuition, deep down in your gut, does it feel like the safe decision to make? Or does it not? Act on what feels safe to you. That it may transcend logic or a left brain, but it really makes sense for you on that emotional, subjective level. That this feels safe, and I want to pursue this, and I want to go after this, because I feel good about it. I feel solid about it. And if you're later in your life, I invite you to lead your life at this time with benevolence, with compassion, with selflessness, with consideration for the people that you are leading. That's what a leader does, is it thinks about its people and it wants the best for its people. It's not out for itself and being in charge and being able to rule over the roost and everybody has to bow down to what the leader wants. No, that is not healthy leadership. Leader of the group, not of the self, but the group. That's what we have to remember about leadership. So if you are a leader, Aries, I'm inviting you now to lead with compassionate prosperity instead of vanity, instead of selfishness. Is what I am doing going to support the group in a positive way, or is it going to destroy them? Am I going to destroy a bridge, a relationship with this group because I did this? Am I going to destroy this bond that I have with the group because I was selfish? I was arrogant. I was overly controlling. And now time to dial it back to focus on what is compassionate for the group. What would be the compassionate thing to say and do? So you may need to act upon it this time. Because Aries, you are a fire sign. And you are a soul-centered sign also. You act with courage and confidence and boldness to be your authentic self. And can you act with that boldness, but also that compassion, that tenderness that you can so easily possess? Where at this time, you can focus on prosperity that is done with compassion. When we are in our soul energy, we are connected to everyone, and we have nothing against everyone. We feel connected to everybody. We feel bonded. We feel that we're in a bond, that we're in a relationship with people, that, that we were leading. And so that's really, really important for you to consider now. Now, Taurus. Crops are huge things, Taurus. There are things to be mended to, things to be tended to, things to be kept, things to be maintained. And sometimes when you allow your crops to get over the falls with the rising water levels, this could be risky for the crop's sake. Where do you need to say no? I need to build some walls around this. I need to build some walls around my plants to keep the water getting into my plants. I need to become grounded enough to where I'm not allowing the emotions to get the better of me. In the same way, I'm having healthy boundaries so that the water does not consume my plants. It can be a metaphor for you. It can be a metaphor. The plants represent you and the water represents the stimulus and the things that we react to, the things that we exact upon us to, things that we get all excited about and get all crazy about. And now, it's time to say, you know what? No. I choose to be sovereign. I choose to respond. I choose to live from the inside out and not allowing the stimulus to interfere with me. Now, we know Taurus is an earth sign, and we know how connected it is to the ego. Earth can be ego. Claiming that I've worked so hard for all the things that I have. I worked so hard in my life to get what I have. Giving a rationale for how hard that we've had to work with our egos. With our egos. Having to be logical, having to follow what society wants from us. You do all these inauthentic things. And this is an ego trap. This is an ego pitfall that you have to watch out for. Is becoming so engrossed with how hard that you work that you wrap up your entire self-worth into the work that you do. You wrap up your achievements and your self-worth and you put it together. You do not rest on the fact that your self-worth is independent from the work that you do. That you can rely on your inner sense of worth. Your inner sense of peace to know that, to validate you that I have done the work I have done this work for myself. This is what I have done. This is what I've worked for. And it doesn't have to be where we are wrapping it all up in our own egos. It says we are only worthy based off of the work that we do. That's not true. Your worth is not bound to that. It's bound to feeling a peace, feeling a groundedness inside yourself. It's bound to what you call home. It's bound to what you think of as yourself, as who you are, Taurus. That's really what we can think of, in a way, is knowing that we are not needing to be defined by our achievements. And that's the bottom line. Then the last piece that I want to say to you is getting so caught up in the work. It's going to be another thing, because you push and push and push for the money, for the achievement, for the accomplishment, and not taking one step at a time, slowing down. You know, where you are deliberate with each step of the way. With each step. You sort of want more and want more and want more, instead of, always, you just sort of tend to force all this stuff at one time, that you do not intend to take each step take one step at a time, and to do all of this. So it's very, very important for you to remember to take one step at a time. Do it in a slow and steady way. This is what needs to happen. Is to not overly push, not overly work so hard, but to be mindful what you're stepping onto, be mindful what you're stepping towards, and choose to focus on right here and right now moment. Focusing on what you can control and what you can think about, what you can understand right now, and what is in your power right here and right now. That's what needs to be kept in mind with this here. Is taking one step at a time, doing one thing at a time, and doing all this in this way. So that's what needs to be kept in mind for Taurus here. Now, for Gemini. Gemini has a tendency to focus on superficial connections. Okay, so Gemini. Gemini is an air sign. It connects in very, very intellectual ways. It connects in, sort of not the deepest ways. And so now you're up in your mind. Now you're up in your head. And so you can connect to others in a deeper emotional way, connecting to others in a deeper subjective kind of way. And that's where you're really, really thriving and shining, is being able to connect to people in these much more profound, connected ways, with not being so up in the mind, up in the attic fear of what you're doing, but being able to really, really drop down into the deep cuttings and go down to the cave and really, really move your way around the watery fields of Stracciatella, Stracciarini, and get to that core meat and bone, where you're really, really connecting to each other, connecting to others in an emotional, subjective, soulful way. So, now it is time to get honest with yourself, Gemini. Getting honest with yourself about where you need deeper, more heart-centered emotional connection. Where is this lacking from your life? Where do you need to connect less on the intellectual level, less on the mental level, but more in a heart-centered way, more in a subjective, deeper kind of honest way. And where do you need to lean into your heart in this kind of way, and connect in these deeper sense of the word. So it's where you need to develop deeper heart-centered connection that is more loving, that is more authentic, that is more real, that is all kinds of things with going on with whatever this is. So that needs to be put into play here. And then there could be this spontaneous impulse of the mind, may get this thing, this aspect of the mind may get the better of you. The spontaneous impulse to just do and act and do things on a whim, do things very impulsively, may get the better of you, to where you need to be calming down, be focused on a particular direction, and be rooted on a particular path, so that you're not just acting on whatever impulse that you have, and not thinking about what are the repercussions of this, what is it going to cost me long term, what is it going to be for me, in that sense of the word, with how it's going to serve me, and how am I going to show up in a way where I am truly being more deliberate about my choices, that I'm not allowing my spontaneous mind to get the better of me, so to speak. So that's what needs to really, really be kept in mind here. Now, for Cancers, how is social media keeping you from feeling at home inside your house and your body? How is social media because social media, when we get on social media, we're really plugged into the whole wide world. We're plugged into all the opinions and all the external stimulus and all the all the news and all the people's opinions and this and that, and we can really, really lose our sense of grounding, footing, home, connection with the body, connection to our roots, our family. It can really, really drain us in a way, especially Cancer, especially the water signs that feel so much. Really, really drain them with feeling very, very just very exhausted by it all, really there is not a solid enough sense of home, sense of safety with that. that you're just going away from your home, even if, you're, in your home. So, and I want you to feel at home with these videos, and I hope that when you listen to these, you feel at home listening to me. I don't want to drain you. It's, with these episodes, it's not my intention to want to drain you, because I don't want to, I don't want to do that. So whether you're watching on YouTube or whatever platform you're watching on, I don't want you to be exhausted and feel like you're going away from home. I want you to feel at home when you listen to these episodes, So that's what I want to say there. And then, are you serving others by nurturing them, by nourishing them? Having to show up, having to care for them, having to be responsible for their feelings and their states of being, or are you truly forming heart-centered, authentic connections? Authentic connections with them. Are you are you connecting on a heart-based level, on a true feeling-based level, and connecting on that way, we're really, really bonding in those deep, true ways where you're having emotional vulnerability, emotional closeness, emotional connection that is so needed with Cancer energy. And then maybe it's time to not hide yourself away from the world. Where have you been hiding yourself away from? Putting yourself out there in the world, putting yourself, out there with what you want to do in the world. And now maybe it's time to, express your emotions and show vulnerability to others, with being able to show your real emotional self, with being able to show your true emotions and wear your heart on your sleeve, and show others your true feelings and what you're going through emotionally. Like I want this for you. I want you to feel like it's safe and like it's freeing to share your emotions, to let these emotions out of the cage, to be able to express them in a very, very deep, loving way toward others that is really, really heart-centered and heartfelt. Where do you need to, open yourself up to others and share what's in your heart, share what's, share what's, on your mind. So then moving on to Leo. Now, maybe during this time with Mars retrograde in Leo, your ego could have been more sensitive to criticism, could have been more sensitive to getting criticism, getting a lot of critique, with what you're doing and in the way that you are doing it. That maybe you're doing a certain thing, you're going along in a certain way, and maybe you need to loosen up your sensitivity a little bit, because Leo is, the ego, and the ego easily gets shattered by external criticism. The ego is very, very sensitive to external criticism, and this is about loosening up and becoming free, feeling safe inside yourself, to be able to feel secure enough inside yourself where you're open to the criticism, you're receiving the criticism, and you are just allowing the criticism to go into and flow into you, where you're not taking the criticism so personally as a personal attack, like not taking whatever people say so personally, Leo. And I think that with your ego, it does get hurt, because the ego is your identity. The ego is the self that you have built up. And so it can be deeply sensitive and deeply tender in that regard. So you also want to keep in mind, like, taking big risks with getting what you want can be problematic. Taking all these really, really big risks, where You just want to act, you just want to express in your heart-centered energy. It's about, waiting it out. Waiting it out and really, really going slow, in your life, with what you're doing. So how do you need to, wait this thing out and, do your thing, really, and take your time when it comes to doing it, not just acting on it out of impulse, because this desire to take big risks is really, really holding you back. Okay. So, then the next thing is this desire to want to protect those you view as an extension of yourself. Loving and, loving in other words, loving in this kind of a thing. So, where do you need to, love yourself and, doing what feels right, doing what really, really fills you up and what, feels right in this kind of thing going on. And, so, because Mars retrograde is a time not to take risks and not to take, big, gambles in a lot of life directions, but it's about, loving, others with that vulnerability, with that heart-centered love and heart-centered energy to really, be able to do that very, very well. And there's this desire to show up, to really, really believe and stand up for those who you believe as a true part of who you are, and as a part of your identity and your sovereignty and your you're this and that. Sort of want to be there for others, and that's a beautiful quality. Now, Virgo. Now, this is really, really about not rushing your work, Virgo. This is not about, rushing what you do. And this is about not pushing so hard, not pushing so laboriously, but slowing down to where you're one step at a time, to where you're taking your steps, or you're taking your easy steps in the right direction. So it's very, very important to not, push so hard and, do all this. So that's very, very, it's very essential for Virgo in a way, is to really, really think about, not, not rushing, not pushing, not, being so laborious, with what they're doing, and and doing all that. So then, you can be in groups that really serve your community. They can serve your community, and we can look out for humanity in better ways. This is what you can really do. is because Virgo is about, service. It's about being in groups and about playing a role in contributing to that group. So now you can, serve the community in a lot better ways, with what you're doing. And, with however you do it, Virgo, however you serve, however you show up. And then, cultures that value self-love over sacrificial service is really, really advocated for you to show up with, because they don't require you to, bend over, serve others without, your own sovereignty being there. And, loving yourself enough to take care of yourself, enough to take care of your own needs and wants and desires, and not to show up with that that need to self-sacrifice, that need to put yourself after others, and that kind of thing. Put others first. Where do you need to love yourself and put yourself first in that kind of way? Now, Libra, where do you need to be flexible and let go of everything working as planned? Because Libra has this rigid, mentality toward doing everything as planned when it comes to everything being fair, everything being balanced, everything being harmonious. And so you have this tendency to want things to be fair and, and even and, harmonious. And where do you need to be open to the, the nuances of relationship? Where do you need to be open to these nuances of being allowed to do things that are not necessarily planned out for you, and that are new, that are spontaneous, that you didn't exactly think of, beforehand, with, whatever you're doing. That you can, be in all these kind of things, going on with, whatever you're doing. And, you can be really, really open to relationship in that kind of way. Okay, so that's the first point that I want to make with you, Libra. So then, the second point is, where is there a lot of suppressed anger, that you're feeling? A lot of anger built up, a lot of resentment, a lot of emotions that, because there's this resentment here with Libra, having to show up, of having to please, of having to people please, of having to be, a martyr to the other person, and this and that. So, where do you feel like you have to please the other person in the, in the relationship, where you're not just being kind and being, benevolent, being calm in that sense of the word, and where is this anger showing up, where you feel like you can't be your authentic self in this relationship, you can't be who you are in this relationship because of having to please the other person with whatever they're doing and whatever they want, and having to show up and having to do all this, whereas it's not serving you. And how can you focus on your own goals, where you're not getting so wrapped up in your partner. Okay. Where you're not getting so wrapped up how can you focus on your own goals, on what you want, Libra, and not getting so wrapped up in in your partner, with what he or she wants. Where you just want personal sovereignty. You just want to be your true self. You want to be who you are authentically. And so we need to be that, ambitiously and very, very hard in that sense of the word, with whatever you're doing. So focusing on what your goals are, what your plans are about life, and and not overly serving the other, not having to bend over for your partner and what he or she wants. But focusing on what you want. That's very, very important. Now, Scorpio. So what are the unhealthy habits that that no longer work for you, Scorpio? That keep you from your empowerment. What are these habits that just don't seem to hold any water for you anymore? That just are really, really unhealthy for you. They're very, very draining for you. And they keep you from really, really being empowered. Keep you from really, really being yourself and your and your true self. Where do you need to be empowered? Where do you need to be fully yourself and fully, how you want to be and show up, in the world. What are these habits and how are they keeping you from feeling free to be, feeling free to be yourself? Keeping you from feeling powerful, feeling good, feeling, high sense of power about yourself, a high sense of, self-advocacy, self-efficacy as that word is, self-worth, where this need to be, empowered is really, really strong. And this need to be very, very, powerful and very, very, working very, very hard on what you're doing and focusing on the habits that are most nurturing for you in your life, with whatever you're doing. And so what are these habits that are not working out for you? And then it's about time to steer, as I'm going through this podcast, I'm kind of ruminating from posting this on YouTube or not. And right now I'm very, very set on not posting it on there, but if I want to, then I will. It's kind of my decision. So, steering your passions with your soul leading the way. This is very, very important, Scorpio. Is being able to allow your soul to steer the way, steer the course, and not letting your fears and insecurities, take over for you. Not letting these fears and insecurities have the final say and direct your actions, but to do things that feel true for you, that you feel open, that you feel free with, that you feel expansive with doing. That you feel good and solid in yourself doing. With all that you're doing. So then you can become very, very focused on your passions and pursuing what truly lights you up in a way, because what truly lights you up, Scorpio, truly lights your heart up, with what you're doing in that sense. What truly makes you feel alive, makes you feel good, makes you feel excited, makes you feel vitalized with your life. You can really, really move in that very, very solid, heart-centered direction, with being focused on what you feel passionate about, what you feel strongly about, and moving on that path. Really, I think is going to be very, very important for you. you know, now Sagittarius, you may feel very, very restless. There is this need to, take risks, to do all these kind of things like that. They need to be free. They need to be spontaneous. They need to take risks. Now it's time to settle down the energy. Now it's time to settle down and not be so, out there, out in the world, adventurous, taking risks, doing all these kind of things. And, slow it down. And then showing others freely your emotional true sense of self. Showing your emotions, showing, who you really are. That is soulful, that is, heartfelt. That is deep and spiritual and meaningful in that regard. And, so that's what you're really doing, is showing your true, showing your more intuitive self, your more expressive self, your more feeling self, instead of the other way around, instead of a sense of self that is based on limiting beliefs and limiting, fears and this and that you're allowing to get the better of the decisions that you're making, that you're holding in your authenticity, just to squash it away and not show others, but to show others the sense of self freely. And then where do you need to not okay. So it's about not taking risks, going into the water, but breaking free of that and doing all these kind of things that make you feel freer, make you feel more liberated, where you're not succumbed to the water and the ocean, the tides and current waves. So, okay, now Capricorn. Those powerful family dynamics where you want to be the one in control, where you want to be the one having, ruling the roost and all that kind of thing. But you're kept from that. You're kept from being in control, because being in control is not the way. Being the one in terms of having all the power, having all the control, is not really the way to go when it comes to running a family, operating a family. It's important to collaborate and allow others a chance to speak and allow others a chance to be, and everything like that. And allowing others the chance to really be who they are. And we're not controlling others, opinions and words, everything like that. And just don't build up the relationship and connect materially and logically. Just not building, because Capricorn tends to build the relationship and build up what it needs to build up, and not connect in a logical or connect on a more vulnerable, emotional way, connected way. And so being very, very mindful of how you're connecting, how you're not being overly logical, overly, overly sort of not involved directly in the relationship, but really, really having that heart-centered connection, that emotional connection there. Now, becoming a leader that is thinking of the group, not thinking of how powerful and important you are being when it comes to change, when it comes to being in charge, So where you can be powerful and important with, with being part of a group, with being in that kind of sense, of the word, with being leading it with benevolence, with kindness, with consideration for the group members and everything like that. And that's what makes a really, really great leader, is leading in that kind of way. Now, Aquarius, you may get caught up in, all that you're doing for humanity, all that you're doing for everybody else, and not coming back home to yourself and your own emotional foundations and your own emotional roots and, this and that, where you need to focus on home and security and what makes you feel grounded and safe and rooted inside of yourself, Aquarius. So, it's very, very important to, come back home and really, really be in your power, be in your sovereignty, be in your body, relate to nurturing roots, emotions, and all these kind of things like that really, really matter, a lot to you. And it's about doing what truly feels safe and well. Doing what truly feels good to you and your body, not what doesn't feel safe. Where you're detaching from your emotions, you have the tendency to, cut yourself off from your feelings and this and that, and not really leaning in and feeling what you need to feel in this regard. So it's very, very important to feel into these emotions. Now, you care about humanity and are very and are open-minded in communication, very, very open-hearted, very sympathetic, and so you can use that to your advantage with being open and caring, considerate toward others' ideas, not being, putting others' ideas down for being less superior to yours, but being open. Like Aquarius is collaborative. Aquarius is open to others and what they say, what they, believe, and they can exchange information. They can interact with you in that kind of way. Now, Pisces, you can connect on a heart and soul level with others. That's very, very deep. Where you're flowing into the relationship, where you're, being, that kind of thing, very, very important. We are connecting in that emotional way, where you are connecting with others, not in a dominant, I want to control everything way, and I want to be in charge, and I want to be the king of the castle way, but being humble, really, really being humble, and flowing with the all, flowing with everyone, flowing with everyone, connecting with others in those kind of deep emotional ways, and showing compassion to others, being an individual and being bold enough, being individual and strong enough in your power to show compassion to others, to want to connect, to want to have sympathy, to want to be supportive of others, to want to offer support or kindness or affection toward others, in the compassionate way and the empathetic way that you connect to others. So that is what I have to say for Pisces, and really all 12 signs for Mars retrograde and Cancer and Leo. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you in tomorrow's episode.